Hey everyone, Simon here. We are in Assassin's Creed 3 and we are gonna look at the architecture of New York. So this is New York. It doesn't really look anything like New York today, unfortunately. So we're not gonna see anything we can recognize. Although I am slightly more familiar with the shape of the city than I was with Boston. Let's just go into Wikipedia and just look up New York and look at some of the history of the city. Oh, this is the state, my bad. New York City? I guess I want New York City. Alright, so New York City. New York referred to as New York City or the City of New York to distinguish it from the state of New York, of which is a part, is the most populous city in the United States and the center of the New York metropolitan area. Maybe I want this instead. That might actually be more useful, although maybe not because the actual metropolitan area is massive. The New York metropolitan area is huge. Alright, let's just stick with this for now. The premier gateway for legal immigration to the United States and one of the most populous urban agglomerations in the world, a global power city, New York exerts a significant impact upon commerce, finance, media, art, fashion, research, technology, education, and entertainment. Home to the headquarters of the United Nations, New York is an important center for international diplomacy. It has been described as the cultural and financial capital of the world. That is fairly accurate. It is possibly the most important city in the world today. I mean, there have been some fairly important cities in the past. Rome, for example, uh, Istanbul, London, Paris, maybe Beijing to a certain extent, and New York. Like some of the most important cities in the world. New York ranks definitely as one of the most important. If not historically, because New York is not that old, but definitely today it is still one of the most important cities in the world. One of the world's largest natural harbors, New York City consists of 5 boroughs, each of which is a county of New York State. The 5 boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island, were consolidated into a single city in 1898. With a census-estimated 2013 population of 8.4 million distributed over a land area of just 305 square miles, New York is the most densely populated major city in the United States. As many as 800 languages are spoken in New York, making it the most linguistically diverse city in the world. By 2013 census estimates, the New York City metropolitan region remains by a significant margin the most populous in the United States, as defined by both the Metropolitan Statistical Area and the Combined Statistical Area. In 2013, the MSA produced a gross metropolitan product of nearly 1.39 trillion US dollars, while in the 2012, the CSA generated a GMP of over 1.55 trillion, both ranking first nationally by a wide margin and behind the GDP of only 12 nations and 11 nations respectively. So just the city of New York alone, well, I mean the metropolitan area, just the metropolitan area of New York alone is ranked behind only 12 nations in the world. That's how much money is or how much productivity is generated in the city of New York. Insane. 1.55 trillion US dollars in a year. New York traces its roots to its 1624 founding as a trading post by colonists of the Dutch Republic and was named New Amsterdam in 1626. Oh, by the way, the largest natural harbor in the world. Again, we see yet another harbor city and a trading city becoming one of the most important cities in the world. So this idea of harbor and trade is so important to cities. The city and its surroundings came under British control in 1664. New York served as the capital of the United States from 1785 until 1790. It has been the country's largest city since 1790. The Statue of Liberty greeted millions of immigrants as they came to America by ship in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and is a globally recognized symbol of the United States and its democracy. Many districts and landmarks in New York City have become well known to the city's approximately 55 annual visitors. Several sources have ranked New York the most photographed city in the world. Times Square, iconified as the crossroads of the world, is the brightly illuminated hub of the Broadway Theater District, one of the world's busiest pedestrian intersections, and a major center of the world's entertainment industry. The names of many of the city's bridges, skyscrapers, and parks are known around the world. New York City's financial district, anchored by Wall Street in Lower Manhattan, has been called the world's leading financial center, and is home to the New York Stock Exchange, the world's largest stock exchange by total market capitalization of its listed companies. Manhattan's real estate market is among the most expensive in the world. Manhattan's Chinatown incorporates the highest concentration of Chinese people in the Western Hemisphere. Basically, the most Chinese people in the world outside of China, pretty much. Well, not quite. Outside of Asia. Um, with multiple signature Chinatowns developing across the city. Providing continuous 24/7 service, the New York City subway is one of the most extensive metro systems worldwide, with 468 stations in operation. 468 stations! New York City's higher education network comprises over 120 colleges and universities, including Columbia University, New York University, and Rockefeller University, which have been ranked among the top 35 in the world. So, it's one of the most important cities in the world. That pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? Actually, I'm kind of interested in... I'm interested in metropolitan areas around the world by GDP ranking. It doesn't really give us a link to it, although it does say global power city. That might actually give us a bit more detail. So mostly we want history, and I think probably history... Oh, let's just go for the history. The modern city is not that important to us in the game, but I think we want to see the city, and then the early history of the city, and how long is the main article? There was a main article for Boston as well. I don't know, it seems like about the same length, to be honest. Alright, list of United States cities by population. That's not what I wanted. Hold on. Global power city. There we go. Global cities. Just allow me to take a small tangent. JWC ranked world cities. I mean, people rank these things according to various criteria. There's no single criteria where people define what the most important city is, but some people have tried. So London and New York, followed by Hong Kong, Paris, Singapore, Shanghai, Tokyo, Beijing, Sydney, and Dubai. Interesting that Sydney is there as well. Not sure about that one. Followed by Chicago, Mumbai, Milan, Moscow, Sao Paulo, Frankfurt, Toronto, Los Angeles, Madrid, Mexico City, Amsterdam, Kuala Lumpur, and Brussels. I don't know about this ranking. I just want to see, actually, like, money. Gross domestic product. I don't know if there is. Global Cities Index? New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Los Angeles, Chicago, Beijing, Singapore, Washington, D.C. Look at that, there's like 4 American cities there in the top 10. Global Economic Power Index, this is probably what I'm looking for. Global Economic Power Index, but it doesn't really say what the criteria is here. New York, London, Tokyo, Paris, Hong Kong, Chicago, Singapore, Shanghai, Los Angeles. Zurich, interestingly, is here, probably because of the Swiss banking sector. And then Seoul, Boston, Beijing, Washington, Osaka. So just based purely on economic power, London, New York is followed by, and so on. Rhine-Ruhr. It's not really a city more as much as it is a region, the metropolitan region. It's massive. The Rhine-Ruhr metropolitan region. I guess this is also not just Tokyo, but the Tokyo. Well, I mean, it's a bit strange because Tokyo and Osaka, like Japan, is so densely populated that basically there's a continuous city that incorporates Tokyo and Osaka and a whole bunch of other cities because like it's just continuously populated because there's so many people in Japan and so little space. Anyway, that's our tangent over. I don't think we need to look at any more of that. All right. So history of New York, just to give us a bit of context as to what we see in the game. In the pre-colonial era, the area of the present-day New York City was inhabited by various bands of Algonquin tribes. Is that how you pronounce that, Algonquin? Tribes of Native Americans, including the Lenape, whose homeland, known as the Napehonking, I'm probably pronouncing this completely wrong, included Staten Island, the western portion of Long Island, including the area that would become Brooklyn and Queens, Manhattan, and the lower Hudson Valley, including the Bronx. The first documented visit by a European was in 1524 by Giovanni da Verrazzano, a Florentine explorer in the service of the French crown, who sailed his ship La Dauphine into New York Harbor. He claimed the area for France and named it Nouveau Angoulême. I don't know how to do French, guys. Is there a pronunciation on this page? No, never mind. A Spanish expedition led by Captain Estevão Gomes, a Portuguese sailing for Emperor Charles V, arrived in New York Harbor in January 1525, so 1 year later, aboard the purpose-built caravel La Annunciada, and charted the mouth of the Hudson River, which he named Rio de San Antonio. So everyone's just giving names to these places, ignoring the people who came just a year ago and named it something else. Heavy ice kept him from further exploration, and he returned to Spain in August. The first scientific map to show the North American East Coast continuously, the 1527 world map known as the Padrón Real, was informed by Gomez's expedition and labeled the northeast as Tierra de Esteban Gomez in his honor. The mapmaker just named the entire area after him. Amazing. In 1609, English explorer Henry Hudson rediscovered the region when he sailed his ship, the Half Moon in Dutch, into New York Harbor while searching for the Northwest Passage to the Orient for his employer, the Dutch East India Company. He proceeded to sail up what he named the North River, so again giving it a different name, also called the Mauritius River, and now known as the Hudson River, so eventually it was named after him, to the site of the present-day New York state capital of Albany in the belief that it might represent an oceanic tributary. When the river narrowed and was no longer saline, he realized it wasn't a sea passage and sailed back downriver. He made a 10-day exploration of the area and claimed the region for his employer. In 1614, the area between Cape Cod and Delaware Bay would be claimed by the Netherlands and called New Netherland. So every white man who comes sailing in just claims it for themselves, and then they name all the rivers different things. That's just these people. And nobody asked the Native Americans, of course, what they thought. The first non-Native American inhabitant of what would eventually become New York City was Dominican trader Juan Rodriguez, transliterated to Dutch as Jan. Jan Rodriguez? Is it Jan or Yan? Yan Rodriguez. Born in Santo Domingo of Portuguese and African descent, Santo Domingo, of Portuguese and African descent, he arrived in Manhattan during the winter of 1613 to 1614. Hold on, that's like that's like 100 years after the Florentine guy. Trapping for pelts and trading with the local population as a representative of the Dutch. Broadway from 159th Street to 218th Street is named Juan Rodriguez Way in his honor. A permanent European presence in New Netherland began in 1624 with the founding of a Dutch fur trading settlement on Governor's Island. In 1625, construction was started on a citadel and a Fort Amsterdam on Manhattan Island, later called New Amsterdam. The colony of New Amsterdam was centered at the site which would eventually become Lower Manhattan. So basically, where the city is in the game, is where this is right now. The Dutch Colonial Director General Peter Minuit, Minuit, purchased the island of Manhattan from the Canarsie, a small band of the Lenape, in 1626 for a value of 60 guilders, about $1,000 in 2006. What a scam! What a scam! They bought the land for $1,000 in modern money. A disproved legend says that Manhattan was purchased for $24 worth of glass beads. Well, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. $1,000 won't buy you very much of Manhattan these days. In 1664, Peter Stuyvesant, Stuyvesant. What is that? Is that Dutch? I don't even know how to pronounce that. The Director General of the colony of New Netherlands surrendered New Amsterdam to the English without bloodshed. Oh wow, they didn't even fight over it. He just gave it to them. The English promptly renamed the fledgling city New York after the Duke of York. On August the 24th, 1673, Dutch Captain Antonio Covey took over the colony of New York from England and rechristened it New Orange to honor the Prince of Orange, King William III. However, facing defeat from the British and French who had teamed up to destroy Dutch trading colonies, the Dutch returned the island to England in 1674. So this guy gave it to England in 1664, and then about 9 years later the Dutch took it back, and then a year later gave it back to the English. At the end of the Second Anglo-Dutch War, the English gained New Amsterdam, New York, in North America in exchange for Dutch control of Run, an Indonesian island. Several intertribal wars among the Native Americans and some epidemics brought on by contact with the Europeans caused sizable population losses for the Lenape between the years 1660 and 1670. By 1700, the Lenape population had diminished to 200. Well, there goes the Native Americans, all dead. New York experienced several yellow fever epidemics in the 18th century, losing 10% of its population to the disease in 1702. New York grew in importance as a trading port while under British rule in the early 1700s. It also became a center of slavery, with 42% of households holding slaves by 1730, more than any other city other than Charleston, South Carolina. Most slaveholders held a few or several domestic slaves, but others hired them out to work at labor. Slavery became integrally tied to New York's economy through the labor of slaves throughout the port, and the banks and shipping tied to the South. Discovery of the African burying ground in the 1990s during construction of a new federal courthouse near Foley Square revealed that tens of thousands of Africans had been buried in the area in the colonial years. So the ships would kind of bring the slaves in here, and then they would ship them down south into the to the plantations. The trial in Manhattan of John Peter Zenger in 1735 helped to establish the freedom of the press in North America. In 1754, Columbia University was founded under charter by King George II as King's College in Lower Manhattan. The Stamp Act Congress met in New York in October 1765 as the Sons of Liberty organized in the city, skirmishing over the next 10 years with British troops stationed there. The Battle of Long Island, the largest battle of the American Revolutionary War, was fought in August 1776 entirely within the modern-day borough of Brooklyn. After the battle, in which the Americans were defeated, leaving subsequent smaller armed engagements following in its wake, the city became the British military and political base of operations in North America. The city was a haven for Loyalist refugees as well as escaped slaves who joined the British lines for freedom newly promised by the Crown for all fighters. As many as 10,000 escaped slaves crowded into the city during the British occupation. When the British forces evacuated at the close of the war by 1783, they transported 3,000 freedmen for resettlement in Nova Scotia. They resettled other freedmen in England and the Caribbean. Interesting. So the slaves, they were promised freedom in exchange for fighting for the English or for the British. The only attempt at a peaceful solution to the war took place at the Conference House on Staten Island between American delegates including Benjamin Franklin and British General Lord Howe on September 11, 1776. Shortly after the British occupation began, the Great Fire of New York occurred, a large conflagration which destroyed about a quarter of the building in the city, including Trinity Church. You can see it in the game, actually. They've recreated that in the game too. So about a quarter of the city is actually burned to ruins in the game. In 1785, the Assembly of the Congress of the Confederation made New York the national capital shortly after the war. New York was the last capital of the U.S. under the Articles of Confederation and the first capital under the Constitution of the United States. In 1789, the first President of the United States, George Washington, was inaugurated. The first United States Congress and the Supreme Court of the United States, which assembled for the first time, and the and the United States Bill of Rights, was drafted, all at Federal Hall on Wall Street. By 1790, New York has surpassed Philadelphia as the largest city in the United States. Under New York State's Gradual Abolition Law of 1799, children of slave mothers were born to be eventually liberated but were held in indentured servitude until their mid to late 20s. Together with slaves freed by their masters after the Revolutionary War and escaped slaves, gradually a significant free black population developed in Manhattan. Under such influential United States founders as Alexander Hamilton and John Jay, the New York Manumission Society worked for abolition and establishment of African Free School to educate black children. It was not until 1827 that slavery was completely abolished in the state, and free blacks struggled afterwards with discrimination. New York interracial abolitionist activism continued. Among its leaders were graduates of the African Free School. The city's black population reached more than 16,000 in 1840. So it was an early center for abolitionism as well. In the 19th century, the city was transformed by developments relating to its status as a trading center as well as by European immigration. The city adopted the Commissioner's Plan of 1811, which expanded the city's street grid to encompass all of Manhattan. The 1819 opening of the Erie Canal, is it Erie Canal? I don't know how to pronounce that. Through central New York, connected the Atlantic port to the agricultural markets and commodities of the North American interior via the Hudson River and the Great Lakes. So it became like so shipping from the interior via the Great Lakes and then Hudson and then out into the Atlantic. so it became a major shipping route. Local politics became dominated by Tammany Hall, a political machine supported by Irish and German immigrants. Several prominent African literary figures lived in New York during the 1830s and 1840s, including William Cullen Bryant, Washington Irving, Herman Melville, Rufus Wilmot Griswold, John Keyes, Nathaniel Parker Willis, and Edgar Allan Poe. Public-minded members of the old merchant elite lobbied for the establishment of Central Park, which in 1857 became the first landscaped park in an American city. So that's the history of old New York, and I think we can end there. Although if you wanna, it's quite interesting to read the recent history as well. But I just want to point out that the city of New York is commonly considered as the most important city in the entire world, culturally, financially. And if you look at the history, it's it was an early center of the abolitionist movement. It is very diverse, very diverse. What is it? Over 200 languages are spoken in New York, and it is also the home of the United Nations. So, I mean, the power. Why is New York important, and why is New York such a center for economy and trade? Is because of its position as a major port city, and also because of the diversity, and because of the large concentration of people. It's the biggest city in the United States. So people, diversity, and trade makes a powerful city, a strong, important city. Let me just put that out there. Like if you ask, what makes a city great? Well, these things make the city great. So there you go. Alright, so let's go into the game and see if we can find some landmarks. And we can go read about them and look for them in the game. Don't look down. What are you doing? I mean, Manhattan today is mostly skyscrapers, right? So most of these buildings will be gone. But we'll see. Locations, New York, Trinity Church. Oh, this might still be here. Oh, it's burnt down, never mind. It's unfortunate you're too late to see the Trinity Church before it burned. Construction on a new church won't start until 1788. Trinity is a bit of an institution in New York, especially in the late 18th century. The church founded both the Trinity School and King's College, which later became Columbia University. St. Paul's Chapel is another offshoot of the church. You can't get a better indication of how loyalist New York was than that. It had two branches of the same Anglican church operating within blocks of one another. Captain William Kidd, yes, the famous pirate, lent some of his ship's equipment to build the original church, the one you see here burned, which was nice of him. Many people these days consider many pirates to have been rather progressive socialists with community-minded consciences, which I rather feel takes away from their mystique. Yeah, but being a pirate in an age of kings and empires mean that you are against kings. So that means you're pretty progressive. You know what I mean? Like a pirate I mean, they're outlaws. The church building in modern-day New York is the third Trinity building. When it was finished in 1846, it was the tallest building in New York. Of course, it's at the corner of Wall Street, so you can imagine how tall it looks now compared to the local skyscrapers. Maybe we can find it in the game. Although, as that description helpfully tells us, it's a ruin in the game, and it's not even the building we see in New York today. Okay, where am I going? It's at Wall Street, which means it should be just to the south up here, right? We'll see if my my knowledge of the geography of New York is very good or not. So southwest, I think. Maybe I should go that way. Maybe I should turn right at the next opportunity. I'm not sure if I'm in the right place. Oh, there it is. I mean, I can see a burnt building. So the Trinity Church should be... Oh, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong place, aren't I? What is this? Am I in the wrong place? I believe I'm in the wrong place. Let me go to the west. Oh, there it is. Alright, so somewhere around here. Probably back to the north. So the Great Fire of New York, there's the remains. There, there's Trinity Church there, or the ruins of it. Not too much to look at, given that it's all burnt down. I wonder how they decided to make this. I wonder if they had actually pictures of the Great Fire. Alright, so there is the burned out ruins of Trinity Church. There you go. Let's come here and go Trinity Church, Manhattan. Does it look like what we have today? Not really, no. Trinity Church, located at 75 Broadway in Lower Manhattan, is a historic, active, well-endowed parish church in the Episcopal Diocese of New York. Trinity Church is near the intersection of Wall Street and Broadway in New York City, New York. So, there's a lot of people over there. In 1696, Governor Benjamin Fletcher approved the purchase of land in Lower Manhattan by the Church of England community for construction of a new church. The parish received its charter from King William II on May 6, 1697. Its land grant specified an annual rent of 60 bushels of wheat. The first rector was William Vesey, for whom nearby Vesey Street is named, a protege of Increase Mather, who served for 49 years until his death in 1746. The first Trinity Church building, a modest rectangular structure with a gambrel roof and small porch, was constructed in 1698. According to historical records, Captain William Kidd lent the runner and tackle from his ship for hoisting the stones. A modest rectangular structure, I guess... I'm not sure about the tower though. It doesn't really say anything about the tower. It is rectangular. Anne, Queen of Great Britain, increased the parish's holdings to 215 acres in 1705. Later in 1709, William Huddleston founded Trinity School as the charity school of the church, and classes were originally held in the steeple of the church. In 1754, King's College, now Columbia University, was chartered by King George II of Great Britain, and instruction began with 8 students in a school building near the church. During the American Revolutionary War, the city became the British military and political base of operations in North America. Following the departure of General George Washington and the Continental Army shortly after the Battle of Long Island and subsequent local defeats, under British occupation, clergy were required to be loyalists, while the parishioners included some members of the Revolutionary New York Provincial Congress, as well as the First and Second Continental Congresses. The church was destroyed in the Great New York City Fire of 1776, which started in the Fighting Cock's Tavern, destroying nearly 500 buildings and houses and leaving thousands of New Yorkers homeless. 6 days later, most of the city's volunteer firemen followed General Washington north. Wait, what? So there was a fire, and then 6 days after the fire, most of the city's volunteer firemen followed General Washington north? Why? Because they didn't like the British? The Reverend Samuel Provost was appointed rector of Trinity, 1784 to 1800. In 1784, and the New York State Legislature ratified the charter of Trinity Church, deleting the provision that asserted its loyalty to the King of England. Whig patriots were appointed as vestrymen. In 1787, Provost was consecrated as the first bishop of the newly formed Diocese of New York. Following his 1789 inauguration at Federal Hall, George Washington attended Thanksgiving service presided over by Bishop Provost at St. Paul's Chapel, a chapel of the parish of Trinity Church. He continued to attend services there until the Second Trinity Church was finished in 1790. St. Paul's Chapel is currently part of the parish of Trinity Church and is the oldest public building in continuous use in New York City. Alright, so that was the first church. The second one was built 1788 and torn down in 1839. And then that's the third church, which looks quite a bit different. Interesting. Alright, so there's no picture of the first church here, so we don't really know what it looks like. The modern church looks kinda cool though, although it is surrounded by much taller buildings these days. Alright, well there you go. Not too much to be said about that. I wonder how accurate that is.
The New York Mercury.
That dog just barks and then stops. Can I... Hold on, let me try something. Can I feed it? I can't feed the dog, alright. There's a thing about using bait to draw dogs away from the guard post. Oh, look, it worked. Kind of. Anyway, back to reading. Animus database, locations, New York, Trinity School. The school opened in 1709 as a charity school, meaning it was free to attend and the students would have been from poorer families. At the time, most well-to-do children would have been educated at home. The school was originally in the bell tower of the Trinity Church, but by the time you're seeing it, it's moved across the street. This is the only school that remained open during the British occupation of New York, possibly because it was endowed by Trinity Church, which was loyalist. After the Revolutionary War, the government started to focus on free public education, and the city eventually stopped funding church schools, preferring to fund secular ones. Trinity School became a private preparatory school, which it still is. It's prestigious, expensive, and has been accepting students for 300 years. Right. So let's see. Trinity School is he said it was across the street from the church, but I don't see it. Oops. I don't see Trinity School. Is it here? No. Is it that? I don't think it's this, right? What is this? What is this? Alright, well let's try and find it in real life. And then try to find it in the game. Is it really not? I don't even know what I'm looking for. Location, New York. Trinity School. looks like that. There is a brick wall around it. That might help us find it. Oh, is that it? I think that's it then. Back there. Alright, found it. So it's in the area that's burned by the city, but it's not actually burned in the game. Trinity School. It's also well guarded. Let me climb up here so we can get a good view of it. Alright, so it looks like that in the game. It did get singed a little bit in the upper right corner there. You see it's been burned a little bit. But otherwise unscathed by the fire. So we go to Trinity School. In New York City. That's not what it looks like. Trinity School is an independent preparatory co-educational day school for grades K to 12, located in New York City, USA, and a member of both the New York Interschool and the Ivy Preparatory School League. Founded in 1709 in the Old Trinity Church at Broadway and Wall Street, the school is the 5th oldest in the United States and the oldest continually operated school in New York City. In April 2010, Forbes magazine named Trinity the best college preparatory school in the United States. Alright, if you say so. Trinity School was founded by William Huddleston, working under the aegis of the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel in Foreign Parts. The Society for the Propagation of the Gospel in Foreign Parts. USPG. Alright, so it's a religious thing. In 1709 as a charity school for Trinity Church. Originally open to both boys and girls, classes were held in Trinity Church in Lower Manhattan, but in 1749 Trinity moved to its own building across the street. The building burned down 2 months later and had to be rebuilt. Oh. So was it burned down in the fire or not? Columbia University, then King's College, was founded in that building's first floor. Trinity traditionally educated its students for Columbia given their close ties. In 1789, Trinity's 56 boys and 30 girls were under the instruction of John Wood, clerk of St. Paul's Chapel at 29 John Street. No longer a charity school, its tuition stood at $7 per quarter, in addition to 1 guinea entrance fee. In 1838, Trinity closed admission to girls. Sexist. Girls would not be readmitted until 1971. Wow. In 1889, Trinity School moved to 627 Madison Avenue at 59th Street, then moved again a year later to 108 West 45th Street. In 1898, the trustees established St. Agatha's School for Girls at 257 West 93rd Street as a sister school for Trinity. St. Agatha's eventually closed its doors. Alright, I don't think we need to read too much of that, but you can see how it just moved again and again around the city over time. So that picture is not what we're looking at today. And it doesn't actually have a picture of the old buildings, really. Notable attendees. Interesting. Alright, well there you go, Trinity School. It's still a school, but it's not in that building anymore, apparently. Should we look around it? I don't think the building itself is all that interesting. It's more just it's a brick building, and it did get burned by the fire a little bit. And I really need to... That's not a hiding spot. Really need to not be attacked. Where's my cheats? Nobody's interested in you guys. Alright, let me just hide there and turn on my cheats. So incredibly annoying. Okay, so the next thing we want to look at, let's see, location, New York, Wall Street. In the 17th century, this marked the edge of the city of New Amsterdam, and it was the location of the city's 12-foot palisade wall. The wall itself was torn down by the British in 1699, but the name Wall Street stuck. So there used to be an actual wall here. By the late 18th century, this was already becoming a financial center. Traders met at the Merchant Coffee House at the corner of Water Street, and under a buttonwood tree outside to trade securities. This buttonwood tree is the site of the Buttonwood Agreement, which was the beginning of the New York Stock Exchange. The street is only 8 blocks long today as you see it here in the late 1700s. If that seems extremely small, remember the skyscrapers are tall rather than wide. Right. So I don't know precisely where Wall Street begins and ends. Do they see me now? I am hacking. Alright, let's go. So Wall Street... So Trinity Church was at the corner of Wall Street, right? So is this Wall Street that I'm on now, or does Wall Street go the other way? I think Wall Street goes the other way, right? I'm going north-south at the moment. Maybe I am on Wall Street. What does it look like in the game? And there's a coffee house as well. Locations, New York, Wall Street. It looks like that in the game. Which I don't see. I don't know. I don't know if this is it or not. There should be a tree. Is that the tree that we're talking about? Is this the tree we're talking about? Is there a coffee house here? I have no idea, to be honest, which street it is. I'm slightly concerned that there are no street signs anywhere. Actually, I know why, because not every street is here, that's why. Because the game needs to compress the city into a smaller area for the game. Not every street is in the game, and so if they put street signs in, then you'll really notice the difference between the game and real life. Which is a bit unfortunate because I'm not sure which one is Wall Street. Oh well. Let's go look up Wall Street here. Map of Wall Street, is that? Wall Street, Hanover, Trinity Place. One is Trinity Church. So it should be... Wait a minute. Trinity Church. So this is Wall Street. What we're standing on right now, this is Wall Street. Because it's right opposite Trinity Church. Let me just run to the other end of this place. That's interesting. What is that? There's like a bridge between the two buildings. Alright, so I guess this is Wall Street. We went from one end to the other. Kind of. Goes a bit further there. Alright, let's go read about it. Wall Street is a 0.7 mile, 8 block long street running west to east from Broadway to South Street on the East River in Lower Manhattan in the financial district of New York City. Over time, the term has become a metonym for the financial markets of the United States as a whole. The American financial sector, even if financial firms are not physically located there, or signifying New York-based financial interests. Wall Street is the home of the New York Stock Exchange, the world's largest stock exchange by overall average daily trading volume and by total market capitalization of its listed companies. Several other major exchanges have or had headquarters in the Wall Street area, including Nasdaq, the New York Mercantile Exchange, the New York Board of Trade, and the former American Stock Exchange. Anchored by Wall Street, New York City has been called the world's principal financial center. Which it is. Fascinating. Original city map calls the Castello Plan from 1660, showing the wall on the right side. So, south is here. Fascinating, the wall. So, the original settlement was only at the very end of the island. And the wall, so Trinity Church. Yeah, so the wall marks the boundary of the old city. Fascinating. Interesting. There are varying accounts about how the Dutch named the Wall Street, the Wallstraat, got its name. A generally accepted version is that the name of the street was derived from an earthen wall on the northern boundary of the New Amsterdam settlement, perhaps to protect against English colonial encroachment or incursion by Native Americans. A conflicting explanation is that Wall Street was named after the Walloons. The Dutch name for Walloon is wall. Among the first settlers that embarked on the ship New Nederland in 1624 were 30 Walloon families. The Dutch word wall can be translated as palisade, however even some English maps show the name as Wallstraat and not as Wallstraat. Wallstraat, not as Wall. I don't know Dutch neither. One version of the story is worth quoting. The red people from Manhattan Island crossed to the mainland, where a treaty was made with the Dutch, and the place was therefore called the Pipe of Peace in their language, Hoboken. But soon after that, the Dutch governor, Kieft, sent his men out there one night and massacred the entire population. Why would you do that? Few of them escaped, but they spread the story of what had been done, and this did much to antagonize all the remaining tribes against all the white settlers. Shortly after, New Amsterdam erected a double palisade for the defense against its now enraged red neighbors, and this remained for some time the northern limits of the Dutch city. The space between the former walls is now called Wall Street, and its spirit is still that of a bulwark against the people. Really? They made peace, and then they massacred them. Why? In 1640s, basic picket and plank fences denoted plots and residences in the colony. Later, on behalf of the Dutch West India Company, Peter Stuyvesant, using both African slaves and white colonists, collaborated with the city government in the construction of a more substantial fortification. A strengthened 12-foot wall. In 1685, surveyors laid out Wall Street along the lines of the original stockade. The wall started at Pearl Street, which was the shoreline at the time, crossing the Indian Path Broadway and ending at the other shoreline, today's Trinity Place, where it took a turn south and ran along the shore until it ended at the old fort. In these early days, local merchants and traders would gather at disparate spots to buy and sell shares and bonds, and over time divided themselves into two classes, auctioneers and dealers. Wall Street was also the marketplace where owners could hire out their slaves by the day or week. The rampart was removed in 1699. On December 13, 1711, the New York City Common Council made Wall Street the city's first official slave market for the sale and rental of enslaved Africans and Indians. Incredible! It was the first official slave market in New York. In the 18th century, there was a buttonwood tree at the foot of Wall Street under which traders and speculators would gather to trade securities. The benefit was being in proximity to each other. In 1792, traders formalized their association with the Buttonwood Agreement, which was the origin of the New York Stock Exchange. The idea of the agreement was to make the market more structured and without the manipulative actions. With a common structure, persons signing the agreement agreed to charge each other a standard commission rate. Persons not signing could still participate but would be charged a higher commission for dealing. In 1789, Wall Street was the scene of the United States' first presidential inauguration, when George Washington took the oath of office on the balcony of Federal Hall on April 30, 1789. This was also the location of the passing of the Bill of Rights. In the cemetery of Trinity Church, Alexander Hamilton, who was the first Treasury Secretary and architect of the early United States financial system, is buried. Alright, we don't need to read too much of the rest of that, but as you can imagine, eventually it grew into the Wall Street we see today. So it was a slave market, but also the center of New York at the time. Federal Hall, is that the thing we ran past earlier?